Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and in today's video we're going to take a look at Fatebound Rogue. This is one of the new hero talent trees. NYI here means not yet implemented. That's a lie, it's now been implemented in this build of the alpha. And this is the hero talent tree shared by Outlaw and Assassination rogues, which conceptually is, maybe a little bit of a tough overlap, so let's see what they've gone with here. We'll start off with the top node, which is Hand of Fate. This is a passive that says flip a Fatebound coin each time a damaging finishing move consumes 5 or more combo points. Heads increases the damage of your attacks by 5%, lasting until you flip tails. Tails deals cosmic damage to target struck. Each effect is increased by 20% each time your coin flip matches the same outcome as the last flip. Good lord, this is a wild, RNG swing, right? Imagine if you just flip heads 10 times in a row. Now, that is not going to happen very often, right? That's 2 to the 10. That is a very, very rare outcome. But, over the course of an expansion, that might happen for you once on a prog fight sometime, or something like that. You're just doing, 50% increased damage by the end of the fight. Or you flip tails a few times in a row and you just are spamming increased cosmic damage explosions. Depending on how much cosmic damage it is, tails might not be that bad of an outcome, but I suspect that heads is going to be better, because in order to compete with 5% stacking increased damage of your attacks... Oh, each effect is increased by 20%. Okay, so you probably don't actually get 5 and then 10 increased by 20, right? You probably are just getting 5 and then 6 and then 7, right? Because it's being increased by 20%. You're not getting an extra stack of anything. And similarly, those cosmic damage hits. So still, I expect you're going to generally be happier when you flip heads, but we'll see how that ends up working out. I think I misunderstood that briefly, though, at the start. Still, though, you flip heads 10 times in a row and you're doing 20% increased damage or something. I guess, yeah, 15% increased damage. That could be a vibe. At the bottom, I like to read the bottom nodes and then do the sides, usually, because often stuff interacts with the bottom node. We have Fateful Ending. When your coin flips the same face for the 7th time in a row, the lucky coin grants 1% increase to all primary, secondary, and tertiary stats until you leave combat for 10 seconds. Now, upon seeing this, I'm reasonably confident that there will be things that let you manipulate or make it more likely to keep a streak going in the side nodes of the tree here. So let's see what we've got. We've got a choice node here between Chosen's Revelry. Leech is increased by 0.5% for each time it's flipped the same face in a row. Or Tempted Fate. You have a chance equal to your crit chance to absorb 10% of any damage taken, up to a maximum chance of 40%. Now, it's rare to get over 40% crit anyways. That's like an end of expansion type thing. So if you have 30% crit, now you have a 30% chance to absorb 10% of any damage taken. That is equal to a 3% DR on average. 30% is quite a bit of crit to have, of course, but if you are stacking crit, which Assassination and Outlaw, especially Outlaw, often does, depending on the patch, then, we're talking about a reasonable, Devo Aura type passive level absorb chance on you for forever if you take this. Which will probably generally be better than Chosen's Revelry, because in most high-end content, damage reductions tend to be a little bit more valuable than Leech. Outlaw is going to have Leech some of the time anyways from Grand Melee, I think, has still got Leech on it. And Assassination, maybe this wouldn't be too bad, but I feel like Tempted Fate is probably going to be the main way you'll do this in high-end content, unless you're playing a build with very little crit for whatever reason. Mean Streak says, Fatebound coins flipped by Dispatch multiple times in a row are 33% more likely to match the same outcome as the last flip. So, flipped by Dispatch multiple times in a row. Interesting. So this will be... we're reading this as Outlaw first. We'll read through and see how it changes for Assassination, but I assume for Assassination is going to be the... and Venom. That would probably be what you see here. Because, of course, sometimes you're flipping Fatebound coins off of Between the Eyes, right? But it's only the ones on Dispatch that are more likely to match the same outcome as the last flip. I wonder if you ever, stop using Between the Eyes to try and avoid... Although maybe... I don't want to talk for too long, because anytime I talk for too long before having read all the other nodes, then there's some node in the future that's like, and here's why you want to use Between the Eyes. Okay, we have Inexorable March, which is not yet implemented, which says you can't be slowed below 70% of normal movement speed while your flips have an active streak of 2 matching the same face. So you get sort of the Death's Advance passive if you are on a 2 streak or higher. Or Grappling Hook may be used a second time within 3 seconds with no cooldown, also not yet implemented. This requiring a streak of 2, I mean, this is probably like a good default option for PvP type situations because you'll just have a reasonably high uptime on a slow reduction. For PvE, I guess it's nice, but it's pretty rare that you have a slow that is like important to stop like this. And if there is something, then you'd want a reliable way of dealing with it as well, probably. There may be some fight, though, where it would be good. It would be good like on Umbral Skull and Azure Vault before they changed how that fight worked. Deal Fate says Sinister Strike generates an additional combo point when it strikes an additional time. All right. Edge Case says activating Adrenaline Rush causes your next Fatebound coin to land on its edge, counting as both heads and tails. I wonder if you could play a build where you never spent with Dispatch, and you just only pressed Sinister Strikes, and then you just pressed AR every time it came off cooldown, and you eventually built up a monster streak of just 60 tails and heads. And, you know, every time you flipped your coin, you'd get a huge cosmic damage strike. That sounds like a degenerate build that might be enabled by this. Of course, you know, taking like a long time to ramp up, but over the course of an M+ dungeon, maybe you can get some value out of that. Threads of Fate says Dispatch crit strikes duplicate 20% of their damage to 2 additional nearby enemies. If there are no additional nearby targets, it duplicates 20% of the damage to the primary target instead. So more crit scaling here. Crit is getting increased value, which is already getting defensively off Tempted Fate. And it has single target value or AoE value, but not like funnel value. Delivered Doom says damage dealt when your Fatebound coin flips tails is increased by 35% while Blade Flurry is not active. Interesting. So if you don't have Blade Flurry going... Now, the current Outlaw build actually just has Blade Flurry on single target a decent amount of the time, which is kind of annoying, which is kind of anti-synergistic with that. I don't know if that's something that they're looking to change in War Within. But yeah, I wonder if this means there's a version of this where, like, before you flip your coin... I guess you're flipping your coin so often that you can't realistically... And yeah, if you just didn't have Blade Flurry active, that would not be worth. Inevitability... So I guess this is just a pure single target damage increase on the tails thing, pretty much. Inevitability says Cold Blood now benefits the next two abilities, but only applies to Dispatch. Fatebound coins flipped by these abilities are guaranteed to match the same face as the last flip. Destiny Defined is the other option on this, which says Sinister Strike has a 5% increased chance to strike an additional time, and your Fatebound coins flipped have an additional 5% chance to match the same face as the last flip. And then Double Jeopardy says your first Fatebound coin flip after breaking stealth flips 2 coins that are guaranteed to match the same face. So all of this lining up with Fateful Ending, of course, that's saying, hey, you get a 1% stacking increase to all of your stats until you leave combat for 10 seconds on Fateful Ending, which is really nice that it says for 10 seconds, right? Because now you can still vanish and not drop combat for long enough to lose this. They're really trying to have you figure out a way to get that 7th flip in a row, right? So, for instance, if you just get lucky with, you know, you flip 3 in a row, natty, right? You've got 3 in a row, and now you hit Adrenaline Rush. That gives you your 4th, right? Now you hit Cold Blood, and your next 2 abilities give you your 5th and 6th because they're guaranteed now. And then you hit Vanish, and you hit, you know, Dispatch again after that, and you broke in Stealth. Now you've gotten another 2 coins. So you actually only need 2, right? You only need 2 natural matching faces before potentially doing an Adrenaline Rush, Cold Blood, and Vanish combo to get you into your Fateful Ending and building up a permanent stat increase for the rest of combat. This sounds pretty sick. This sounds pretty powerful. It sounds like potentially a really strong thing for an M+ run where, especially if this stacks. I don't know if Fateful Ending stacks, but if it does, whew, that's, I mean, by the end of a dungeon, you could have a huge amount of permanent increase to your primary, secondary, and tertiary stats as long as your tank pulls within the next 10 seconds, which you can pull for them with Tricks of the Trade if they don't. Let's see how these abilities change if we swap over to Assassination real quick. Let's not see how those abilities change if we swap over to Assassination real quick, as that has disconnected me from the alpha server. Hopefully my characters are still here. Okay, this time for sure. And we've been able to activate the spec without changing our, or without disconnecting. Okay, so for Fatebound Assassination Rogues, same idea on the top end, right? You're flipping on every finishing move that consumes 5 or more combo points. And yeah, it's Envenom instead of Dispatch. Deathmark causes it to land on its edge. Cold Blood is going to apply to the next 2 Envenoms. Poisons have the increased application chance, and it is how Destiny Defined works. Envenom crits are the Threads of Fate effect. Shadow Step instead of Grappling Hook is the Death's Arrival thing. Yeah, these effects are all the same. Deal Fate says Mutilate and Phantom Knights generate an additional combo point when they trigger Seal Fate, which I believe is a crit scaler. I believe that's you get extra combo points when you crit on these abilities. So, wow, potentially you could generate a lot of combo points very quickly, even on single target with Mutilate crits, generating additional combo points on their Seal Fate effects. And damage dealt when your Fatebound coin flips tails is increased by 35% when flipped by Envenom or Rupture. That's nice. Cool. Yeah, and then everything else looks to be the same. So, interesting setup. It is a little weird that there's stuff like Crimson Tempest and, you know, Between the Eyes. Between the Eyes in particular seems like a rough thing to be leaving out of this tree for Outlaw Rogue, because so much of the current build is like, oh, it feels good to press Between the Eyes, and then Fatebound has this whole thing where it's like, I only work with Dispatch. So that's something that's like a little weird to me, but potentially there will be a build that makes that less weird. And yeah, I do wonder if you can ever just... I wonder if you could ever just spam... Imagine if you go... Okay, I know this wouldn't be good for actually timing a key. But imagine if you go into an M+ key and you just like CC a mob and you just keep it in combat for like hours, activating Deathmark on CD, and then you just have like 100 heads and tails built up, and then you could just go up to a pack and hit Deathmark on it and, you know, flip a tails that is just one-shots the pack. I wonder if that's something you could do as a goofy, funny thing. Could be something that this currently enables. I don't know. Anyways, that's our look at the Fatebound, Assassination, and Outlaw hero talent tree. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.